One of the big questions is,
what is money?
Practical purposes, it exists in a series of heterogeneous databases, very different databases.
do you believe in crypto?
Digital currency may be an answer.
But it is the highly speculative asset.
I do own Bitcoin.
There is no second best.
Welcome to the Crypto Curious podcast. Every Wednesday, we dive into the dynamic world of cryptocurrency. If you're new to crypto, we recommend starting with our early episodes where we break down the basics and give you a solid foundation to understand the crypto world. And for the Crypto Curious, the seasoned addict, or the industry insider, we're here to help you unpack the latest digital news. And this week, we've actually got 4 stories, starting off with Bitcoin blasting through all-time highs. Then Sui was drained of 223 million. What happened there? Also, stablecoins. There's a surge, and what's happening there with the Senate. Lastly, some news here in Australia all around how we pay tax with crypto. My name's Tracy, as always, joined by Blake and Craig. Hey guys, how you going?
Hey guys, great to be back here in Australia in the cold. I think I got frostbite. It's 12 degrees down here.
Yeah, we're back into winter here, but it's still heating up here in crypto news. How are you going, Craig?
Yes, the market is heating up. We had all-time high week on the same day as the Bitcoin pizza anniversary day. It was the same day when they broke all-time high. So I did go to a Bitcoin pizza event in Sydney and the energy was very high, but it feels like the media is a bit quiet this time, which I know we'll get into.
Yeah, well, look, it's funny you should say that because that is what we're going to talk about up the top here, folk.
Should we explain the Bitcoin pizza for people that may not know?
Okay, look, let's do that. Let's explain what that means.
Well, every year there's a Bitcoin pizza anniversary, and it was notably one of the first transactions that anyone ever used to buy something in the real world. And there was a gentleman in the early days in 2010 or 2011 that paid 10,000 Bitcoins for one pizza delivery. And at the time, it was in the US somewhere, and people thought that this was just water under the bridge, but over time it's become a thing, and every year now people get together and eat pizza and talk about Bitcoin on the anniversary, which is really cool.
It is very cool. I see that guy pop up every now and then and talk about what he could have bought with that pizza money.
It's turned into a great day for pizza shops, actually, unironically.
Get around to pizza shops of the world. But yes, on that day last week, we did hit all-time highs, cracking over 109,000 US dollars. So that was from 4 months ago where we peaked it, but it was a bit of a nothing burger again, and no one's really feeling it this time round. There's no Uber drivers talking about it. There's no extreme greed. It's oddly calm.
Right, we signed up for hype, and where is it? We feel shortchanged. All-time high with no hype. What is this?
What's going on, guys?
Yeah, it feels a little bit weird because I remember in November we did an episode and we all said that everyone's messaging us. We're seeing news.com.au talking about Bitcoin, and the whole thesis back then was, oh, Trump's going to get in, Trump's going to pump Bitcoin. But now it's kind of like we're back at the same levels. No real talk about why we're here, other than the fact that institutions that we'll get into have just been absolutely pumping Bitcoin, and Trump easing up his tariff language has just kind of quietly sent us to all-time high.
I think what we need to point out, though, is that normally at this point, the fear and greed index, which we like to mention, is at extreme greed, and that's not there at the moment. It's still hovering around the 60s. The funding rates are really low still, and Google search trends are surprisingly flat. It's no one's looking at Bitcoin or at crypto at the moment, so it's just quite odd.
I just had a look at it, Trace. We're at 74 on the fear and greed index, and I think around November we were at 84. So we are getting higher. We're not in the 90s just yet.
What does this mean, Blake? Is this more of a healthier rally?
Well, there has been a lot of conversation around a couple of key topics, such as the supply on exchanges. So the amount of Bitcoin that's just sitting on exchanges is a metric that you can gather online, and it's sitting at all-time lows, which means that the supply and demand dynamics are a little bit out of whack, and there's more demand than there is supply, but it looks like the institutions are mainly gobbling it up, like the Bitcoin ETFs. And the second point is that what a metric that we follow is the global M2 money supply, which is all of the money in circulation. So this can increase and decrease over time depending on what central banks, how much money they are creating. And at the moment, all over the world, the amount of money that's in total supply is increasing, which correlates to Bitcoin because a certain percentage of that flows into the digital asset market. There's a lot of people predicting that this is going to go much higher now that many central banks are pivoting to quantitative easing.
And I guess what is interesting is watching the Ben Cowan episode we did a few weeks ago. Before we hit all-time high, Ben mentioned that if Bitcoin hits all-time high in May, we will follow the normal cycle programming, which is Q2 highs, Q3 a bit quiet, and then Q4's not all-time high, but the cycle high. So that's a really interesting watch if you're interested in looking at the charts and seeing our favorite analyst give his 2 cents. So it is good news that we managed to break it in Q2 because Ben was worried that if we didn't, we might have already had the top.
All right. Well, like we said, this one feels different in a good way. The momentum is building. And when retail does finally wake up, we could see those highs like you mentioned later this year. So let's see.
Don't say the words. Don't say alt season.
Let's see what plays out. Fingers are crossed. Moving on to our second story, boys. It's been a brutal week for the Sui ecosystem. The other day, I think it was Friday, they had their Cetus protocol, which powers the DEX that Sui is, exploited for a massive 223 million, which sent a lot of these Sui-based tokens down between 50 and 90%. Who wants to take over here and explain a little bit more about who Sui is and what happened?
Yeah, so Sui is a alternate layer 1 protocol. They're looking at gaming, really fast transactions. They're actually making a portable gaming console powered by Sui. They have a bunch of shitcoins on there like Lo-Fi, Hippo, Cetus. They all dumped over 50%, some by even more than that. And it all happened in a matter of hours. But Sui as the token was barely down a couple of percent. I actually think it was up 2% after it launched. Blake, what do you think about this?
Yeah, well, we've seen this with other protocols like Solana having issues in its early days and still some issues as it continues to improve its robustness. And I think we really just have to expect this from younger blockchains. Bitcoin's been around for probably 16, 17 years now. And Ethereum, 10 years, something like that. So they've had a lot of time to stress test it. And these newer blockchains that have only been around a few years still have a lot of work to do to be able to improve on that uptime. So yeah, I think no surprises here, but generally if these things happen, I think it's a great buying opportunity, particularly if the primary token of the blockchain dumps, because generally these things can be fixed relatively easily.
I'm still surprised how quickly this bounced back though, Craig. Like you said, on the night that this happened, Lo-Fi, for example, dumped 98% in an hour because what happened was the liquidity pool on Cetus was drained 100%. So those ones we talked about, everything was gone within an hour.
It was $162 million that was stolen, is that right?
But everything was gone and crypto Twitter went berserk for a little while. But like you said, the Sui token itself, on the day I think it was up 6%, then it came down to 2% and then just kind of rebounded. So I think a lot of people, because they love the token, saw that as a buying opportunity and it just rebounded very quickly.
There's a lot of interesting things in this story. One is that the Sui Foundation are now ignoring all transactions from the hacker's wallet address. Now that sparks some debate around centralization. That's essentially a governing body that is deciding what transactions are going through. Ethereum doesn't do that. Solana doesn't.
Well, Ethereum has done that in its early days. So there was the famous DAO hack that happened, but that was very early on. They haven't done anything like that since, and they famously forked or basically copy and pasted the blockchain and to make sure that those stolen funds weren't actually stolen in the end.
So there is a conversation around that happening in this day and age, but also the fact that 84% of Sui's stake supply is controlled by the founders. Also, there is massive influencers that are shilling Sui, like Raoul Pal, our buddy Ben Simpson loves it. It feels like I don't want to say this and get booed, but it's giving me Ripple vibes. Like, I don't really know anyone that's using Sui to do DeFi. It has a bunch of super fans. It's controlled heavily by founders, and the market cap is like, I think it's in the top 10 for the highest fully diluted market cap, which is like crazy. It's half the size of Coinbase, for example, which it just seems, I don't know what, like, have you guys bought Sui? Like, where do you stand it as an investment?
For me, it's interesting. I think if you're going to hedge against Ethereum, Solana's the one. If you want to hedge against Ethereum and Solana for a high throughput blockchain, Sui could be it. You know, we've seen other blockchains similar, like EOS, that were more centralized, high throughput, and they've ended up failing or really gone to the periphery. So these guys are really going to have to do something different if they want to take market share from. If they're focused on gaming, you know, they're competing against like Immutable. Immutable is a layer 2 Australian founded layer 2 blockchain on Ethereum, which have real deal partnerships with some of the largest gaming studios in the world. And it's hard to see how they're going to compete against that.
Look, I know a couple of guys that on the founding team for Lofi, and they've said that they're moving chain. So there's some collateral damage on this. So anyway, let's move on to our next story. This one is stablecoins, who have had a huge week, both on the political front and on the payment side of things. In the US, the Genesis Act, which we've spoken about in the last few episodes, just passed a key vote in the Senate, putting stablecoin legislation one step away from becoming actual law. And at the same time, Stripe rolled out support for stablecoin payments and launched their own stablecoin, which is USDB. So this is like really big news, boys, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's huge. And I think it creates a really great pathway for innovation to happen, particularly in the US. And we're seeing that with companies building their own stablecoins. I was just chatting with some investors earlier today about stablecoins, and they're not necessarily in the crypto ecosystem. And they were really interested to hear about the growth of the ecosystem, matching volumes of Visa and MasterCard in the last 12 months. And you're seeing all of these private kind of Stripe and PayPal develop their own stable coins and really talking about what's going to happen. Are we going to see these closed loop environment stable coins or more of these decentralized ones? And I think it really reminds me of the Apple versus Microsoft ecosystems, where Apple was this closed ecosystem and then Microsoft was more of an open ecosystem. And I think that we're going to see both schools develop.
And I guess it's even more interesting that it seems like we're trending to a world where every major fintech provider, whether it's Stripe, PayPal, even Combank here, are all going to have their own version of a stablecoin. And it's just going to be interesting to see what happens if I have to pay Tracy $1,000 in stables, but she might not have the Stripe stablecoin. And it's going to be interesting to see how that works.
Yeah, these closed environments, if you have the PayPal stablecoin and you want to pay someone in Stripe, how's that going to work? They're going to be interoperability, or are we going to see just these USD tethers dominate the whole ecosystem?
So also the last week we saw the MetaMask, they rolled out their beta system in the UK, Argentina, and I think there's 4 others that have got their cards now. I saw a few people on Twitter showing a picture of their cards that are out, which is pretty cool. I know that Blake and I are waiting for Australia to roll out their beta cards as well. So that's pretty cool.
So that's actually legit not needing a bank anymore. You get paid in stables, you keep it on your MetaMask, your merchant takes Stripe, which means they take what you've got. So yeah, we're moving into bankless society.
Maybe once we get our cards, Trace, we could do a little bit of a challenge and see how long we can live off crypto for.
Done. Love that. And just before we round out that story, I think I was saying to you, Craig, off air about the big 4 over in the US as well. So JP Morgan and the 3 other big banks that are also announced in the last few days that they are going to do their own stablecoin together as well.
And then it'll come after that will be managed products, earn a yield on the stablecoin with JP Morgan, put it in treasury bills.
So it's all adoption. Whichever way you look at it, stablecoins are here to stay, and we'll continue the conversation, no doubt, for the rest of this year and beyond. Okay, guys, let's move on to our next story. We're doing 4 today, folks, because this one's a little biggie for our Aussie listeners. A recent court ruling in Australia has determined that Bitcoin is money, not a capital gains tax asset. So if this sticks, it could have major tax implications for anyone who ever sold or traded Bitcoin here. This is big news, isn't it, guys?
Yeah, so just a bit about this case. It was an Aussie Bitcoin trader who has challenged the ATO after being hit with a $4.5 million capital gains tax bill. The trader says he was using BTC more like a currency. Let's not ask what he was using the currency for. And that's the argument he's putting forward. So this is a really big precedent. And I'm actually very surprised it's taken this long for something like this to come up. But the ATO may appeal the decision, which is that Bitcoin is money and not a taxable thing.
Do you think that they'll appeal though, Blake?
Yeah, I think they will. It's $640 million of potential fat tax refunds going back to Aussies for their Bitcoin trading. And it'd be nice to get a little kick with our tax returns when that comes around. But yeah, speaking about the courts, friends over at Block Earner recently won their appeal against ASIC regarding some of the yielding products that they've had on their platform back in 2021 and 2022. And now ASIC has lost again, and they've appealed to the High Court. So this will, they've appealed for a second time now. So this is going all the way to the top, and we wish the guys over at Block Earner the best of luck with that one.
I was thinking of just back on this Bitcoin story. I was thinking, like, if Australia says that Bitcoin is not taxed, what would that mean for our crypto industry? I think you'd see a lot of startups move to Australia. It'd be a pretty positive thing in the long run, I think.
Yeah, well, then those jurisdictions that have similar law to Australia, like the UK, like Canada, could end up moving in the same direction.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure they'll appeal that one. So don't go celebrating too early, folks. On that note, we'll go for a break. And when we come back, our short, sharp news bites. Welcome back. You're listening to the Crypto Curious podcast. Time now for our short, sharp news bites brought to you by the Bamboo app. Up first, what have we got here? The Trump dinner. The Trump dinner has come and gone. Boy, was that a flop. Did you guys look into what happened here?
I haven't heard one thing about this. What happened, Trace?
It wasn't very well publicised, to be honest. The most exciting thing was there was a meme coin called Dinner that went really well and pumped.
Oh, we're getting so lazy, aren't we?
Yeah, well, look, this is what happens with these meme coins. But the dinner did happen. It was held at Trump's Virginia golf course, and obviously the top 220 Trump holders were able to go along, and apparently 92 of these attendees then just went ahead and dumped their tokens straight away. So apparently it was a bit of a fizzer. There wasn't, who went along? Let's have a look at that. Justin Sun went along of Tron fame. Kane Warwick, who we'll know here from Australia from Infinex. We had some NBA stars. Lamar Odom went across to shill his recent coin as well. Not much came out from it, to be completely honest, but
we didn't even get a video. Yeah, the full guest list wasn't released, and we haven't seen any videos of Trump's speech, or even if, was he there?
He apparently was there for the last 5 minutes.
Imagine buying this, flying all the way to Washington, booking accommodation, getting there, Trump walks in for 5 minutes.
And then the coin dumps. So apparently the key support level is around about the $13. And if it falls below that, it could be
more downside. So, yeah.
Do you think Melania will have an event next?
Nah, but I'm just waiting on Baron Trump's coins. We've seen Eric, we've seen Melania. Baron's next on the list.
I will buy Baron.
I will not. All right, what's up next?
Got a good one for you guys. Elon confirmed beta testing for X Money. So this has been long teased on the podcast, where he wants to transform X into a money app. And the rumor mill says that Doge could be involved. He wants to take extreme care in the involvement of the user's money. So the app has already secured money transmitter licenses in 41 states. So this could be very bullish for crypto adoption on the socials.
This has been a long time coming. We talked about him securing these licenses a year ago and nothing's happened. So this is interesting.
Next up, previously WorldCoin raises $135 million to scale human verification network. Now, we've spoken about this before. World has this orb where you can scan your retina and receive some coins in return in their native digital currency. And they've raised $135 million to roll out more broadly across the world This one's backed by Sam Altman, the CEO and founder of OpenAI. And yeah, I think this one's got some massive backers. They'll do well, but this one makes us all feel a little bit weird.
A little bit weird.
And some really short, sharp news bites to finish us off. This one is Sam Bankman-Fried. He is serving 25 years in jail right now for the FTX collapse from a few years ago. His sentence has been cut by 4 years for good behaviour, apparently. Lucky boy. And also his co-conspirator, Caroline Ellison, is set to be released in May next year.
Hot tip, I think he gets out way earlier.
So do I. They just wait until people forget, really, and then they'll sneak him out the back door.
FTX token to buy if he comes back out.
Better out the back door than in the back door there, Trace.
Oh, my God. I must be telepathic. I knew that was coming somehow. Oh, gee.
no.
Okay. And on that note, we're going to end the show there, folks. Thanks for being with us today. Until next week, stay curious, stay connected. You can do that by joining our Crypto Curious Facebook group or our Instagram page. We have a weekly crypto newsletter you can join as well. There's links in the show notes below. If you're looking to dollar cost average into the crypto space, have a look at the Bamboo app. For $10 of free Bitcoin, you can use the code CURIOUS. Again, link in the show notes below. Thanks for being with us. We'll be back next week. Bye for now.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.